Damon, I'm hearing that because of a torn ACL, we're not going to get any tater tots on the court tomorrow, but could we still fry the Cougars?
Welcome on into the AZ Wildcats podcast, live from Studio K, presented by the fine folks over at Circle K. And of course, I am your host, Damon Fairall. That's my guy, Kevin Thomas. We are the AZ Wildcats podcast, and we are presented by our friends over at Branded Bills. Head on over to brandedbills.com, use promo code BBPHNX, and get 15% off your first order. I was just scouring the brandedbills.com website last night, Kevin, for some new lids. It's something about that two-tone you got on where I'm looking at it and I'm going, that's special. I like the white with the navy lid. Of course, I got a custom collection hat on. We love our friends over at Branded Bills, and we love talking about the Arizona Wildcats, especially when they have games ready to play, Kevin, because BYU on the horizon tomorrow, the second matchup against the Cougars this season. Hopefully Tony Padilla is in the building. We all know that a BYU and Arizona game is not complete unless Tony Padilla is officiating said game. And yeah, it should be a fun one. We're going to get into our BYU preview on this show, how Arizona can avoid 3 straight losses in lead up to their massive matchup against Houston on the road on Saturday. But first off, Kevin, we got to talk about the Houston Cougars, number 2 team in the country after the most recent AP poll. Arizona drops down to 4. Houston bumps up to number 2 for the number 1 ranking in the Big 12. And they immediately lose on the road in Ames against Iowa State. You and I were both watching. What were your main takeaways from that one?
Man, my sweet son, Kingston Flemings, my boy. He went out there and did his very best to get the W. But yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I feel like that is one of my takeaways. We're going to get to Kingston Flemings here in a second. But what a game that was, Damon. What a game. What an environment it was out there in Ames. I was texting with Travis Clones about, like, where does that environment fall for him as a Cyclones fan, like, in the all-time rankings? Because some of the videos, and forget the videos, we'll get to that in a second, but the live broadcast of that game, man, oh my goodness. It was unbelievable, the level of noise that environment was bringing. We talk about Fog Allen Fieldhouse, right? We talk about how Arizona was affected by that environment, and that is no excuse, right, as to why Arizona fell to Kansas, but I think it's certainly contextually a part of the reason why Arizona might have struggled once things started to get close and that arena started to get loud. But Hilton Coliseum, man, they still got that Hilton magic, and it was on full display last night as everybody and their mama saw just how loud Cyclones fans can get. But that game was incredible. It felt like March.
If you're a major hotel company, Kevin, for example, say Marriott or Hilton, and there are 2 major arenas in this conference that are sponsored by both of them, are you pumping in crowd noise just to make sure that yours sounds a little bit louder? Because I certainly am.
I mean, I would if I had to. I honestly feel like that Hilton environment, you don't need it.
No, I'm not accusing them of doing anything. I'm accusing Hilton of being like, we got to be the superior hotel brand arena in the Big 12 conference in basketball. So we got to do whatever it takes. But I say that in jest because that you're right. That Iowa State crowd last night was unbelievable. I mean, it was probably, you know, other than what we witnessed at the Fog Allen Fieldhouse, the next best environment in the Big 12, if not even better. I saw some people saying that was like the craziest arena that they've ever been in. And as you said, like our guy Travis Clones was saying, it was deafening in the lower bowl area of that one. But there was one Iowa State fan, Kevin, who got on mine and yours last nerves. And I assume that if anybody was watching at home, they felt the exact same way. Because you had this clown, this bozo, just blocking our screen for the better part of the last 5 minutes of the game every time Iowa State was on the defensive side of the basketball. And it's almost like they knew what they were doing, Kevin. It's almost like someone gave them a phone call and said, keep doing that because you're blocking the screen and it's funny. And I think that should be qualified as a legitimate crime against humanity. I think it's a felony. I think it's beyond a misdemeanor. I think it's a felony. And I think that fan should have been escorted out of the building in handcuffs and be awaiting trial with maybe even the Supreme Court right now. I know it doesn't work like that, but that's probably how it's like. We should just elevate it to the top. We don't need appeals courts. We don't need circuits. Let's just give it straight to the Supreme Court and figure out what we can do with this absolute criminal.
Man, I had to get in my dad bag watching the game, doing like, who's in the front of the game? Why are you blocking the game? And I realized it's on the screen, and it's even more frustrating. I was talking to people on Twitter about it last night about like, I am really annoyed with the person that had their pom-pom up in the middle of my screen. I'm more annoyed of the production team of ESPN to not cut to the basket camera, cut to a different like angle. Do we have no other options? It was happening on both ends of the court. You had a guy with his big-ass head and hat in the screen on one end, and you had a pom-pom on the other. Shout out to Hilton, which apparently is not named after a hotel. Apparently Hilton is not named after the hotel.
Oh, wow.
It's named after James H. Hilton. So shout out to Bram in the chat for getting us educated on that topic.
Just wait, Bram, until it's the Hilton Arena, and then all of a sudden you'll be singing a different tune on here. But that is interesting.
Yeah, but that is crazy. Like, it was incredibly frustrating. I think this specific moment was like a high leverage moment in the game where Emmanuel Sharp was shooting, I believe, a 3 or a long 2. He might have airballed it. Who's to say he didn't airball it because of the pom-pom? Who's to say he also couldn't see because of a pom-pom? But yeah, the game was incredible. The environment was incredible. The ESPN production was a little bit lackluster, as we just noted. But yeah, man, the players on display in that game, we're going to talk about it because we got Iowa State coming up, and we have Houston coming up even before that. But man, Kingston Flemings, Damon, Chris Sinak, I will even throw Isaiah Harwell into it. Clearly a couple tiers below both those guys. But I think like I was texting with Corey and Saul about this during the game. Not enough people talk about Kelvin Sampson's youth this year. Everyone's talking about Tommy Lloyd with these, 3-4 freshmen. Wow, like, how are they going to do it? How are they going to win it all? Houston is propelled by Kingston Flemings, supported by Milo Suzan, right? But if Chris Sinak can continue his development, that's a freshman that you got to reckon with. And I think that in a year like this, where he might, I don't know what his plans are. I'm not a Houston insider, but I would assume that in a draft class as loaded as this one, he might take a second year at Houston, right?
Probably
Just
should.
for the sake of his development. I think it'd be great for him.
Yeah.
I think you and I were texting about that as well. Like, if he stays at Houston, you got a monster in the making. Did you see the way that Kelvin Sampson reacted to that sequence that had me standing up screaming at my TV during dinner like a madman last night, where there are 3 missed shots for Houston on this possession and 3 offensive rebounds by Chris Sinak on the same possession. And then he draws the foul to end the possession. And Kelvin Sampson is running up and down the sideline going, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Chris. And you're just like, dude, to get a guy like Kelvin Sampson to freak out like that, man, you're doing the right thing. Now, I know in the end of the game, it did not go out like that because Tamin Lipsey, and the legend that he is able to get that rebound off the missed free throw because 2 guys did not do their job. They did not pinch Tamin Lipsey on the box out, so he just got a free run to the ball. Everybody's ball watching for the Houston Cougars, and no one gets the board. It's GG's. Hilton Magic strikes again. It was a hell of a game between 2 of the, I was going to say conferences, 2 of the country's best sides, and it was a pleasure to watch for sure.
Yeah, I look at that Houston team, and I see a lot of what Tommy Lloyd tried to do, I think, with Arizona this year, which is supplement the guys that are, bringing the experience, the guys that have been at the program for multiple years, like Tobe Awaka, Jaden Bradley, Milos Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, Joseph Tugler, and supplement those guys with Koa Peats, Braden Burries', Kingston Flemings, Chris Sinak, like the elite level 5-star types, and surround that elite talent with the experience. And I think that that's how you build the best possible roster at a college basketball level in the year of 2026, right? And Kelvin and Tommy, I think if they're doing similar things, that's probably what the rest of the country should probably be trying to do as well. And you're not wrong. Like Chris Sinak Jr., I texted you yesterday. I haven't been all that impressed by him the entirety of this season, but he showed a lot of life yesterday. We know Kingston Flemings has been bringing it from the jump this season and is probably Houston's best player, which is crazy to talk about when you think about the three guys that they had returning and how good each one of those players is, especially Milos Uzan, who's unbelievable and just gave us buckets last season.
Potential Bibby in-law in the future. We got to be careful.
Potential. I don't know how does that work? He's a Wildcat in-law? Like that's if he gets married to Mike Bibby's daughter, who's his current girlfriend, or we'll work that off air. But Houston is obviously fantastic. They looked great last night, and they didn't look as good as Iowa State did last night because Iowa State ends up with the W, albeit they're at home, so they have that home court advantage. But really impressive stuff from Iowa State. Like it just felt like they had the response cooked up at all times. There was that portion in the first half where they went a little bit cold. Houston took a lead, and then immediately Iowa State comes, rolling back with a run of their own to retake the lead. In the second half, I turned it off at halftime, turned it back on with like 14, 15 minutes left. They're down 5-6 points, and they immediately come storming back and respond again. Iowa State had a response cooked up for these guys at every turn, and I was really impressed watching them. A team that I think that, admittedly, we've talked about, like, we've disrespected Iowa State this season, and, I do think that team is to be reckoned with. Like, one thing that, kind of stuck out to me, Kevin, when I was watching Iowa State last night, and, there was obviously a few. It's not as if, they were a one-man show, but Joshua Jefferson is really tall. He's way taller than I thought he was. He's big, like not just height-wise. Like he is just kind of a unit, and that combined with the shooting, with the passing, and the IQ that he brings to the table, like that's a dude who can get the job done against every single team he plays against on his schedule. There's not going to be one team that sees Joshua Jefferson and is like, we're going to be able to stop this dude. And I think that alone makes Iowa State scary. Then you add in Momcilovic's shooting. You add in Lipsy, and he didn't have the greatest game last night, but he found a way to make plays when it mattered. And honestly, I thought Heisey played really, really well as well, especially with just some of the responses, like when I'm talking about to those Houston runs, that one where they kicked it out to him in the corner and he had like 0.3 seconds to like get the shot up, and he just drilled it, turned around to his bench and put his hands up and was like, what?
He had one eye, Damon. I don't know if you caught that. I don't know if like that was before or after you tuned in. I don't remember what point in the game. Heisey was shooting that. He pretty much could have did the LeBron quote where he's like, I saw 3 baskets and I shot the middle one. Because I think there's a screenshot going around. Maybe you can find it while I'm giving this up. But it's like a Cyril Gahn level eye poke that Emmanuel Sharp accidentally, I'm not trying to put that out there, accidentally delivered to Nate Heisey. So he's got a banged up eye, no dip on the shot. I think Ryan Hammer or one of those basketball nerds that we love so much out there that does all the deep dives into the sport that we all love, they went into the timing of it. They slowed it down frame by frame and said that it took him like 0.44 half of a second to get that shot off. And that's like, I guess, 0.1 of a second faster than Steph Curry's average. Like there was a minimal room for error with that 3 from Nate Heisey. And before you even get to the 3, you bring up Jefferson, the pass that he threw.
Dude, his passing is unbelievable.
I feel like I knew that Jefferson was a good player. I knew, like you said, that he had the size and stuff.
Yeah.
I've really been underestimating his versatility. Like the way he can shoot it, the way he can pass it, the way he can post up. Very underestimated in that sense by me. And you mentioned that this podcast has been kind of sleeping on Iowa State all year, and somewhat rightfully so. You go on the road and lose to Cincinnati, there's going to be some doubts, right? Now, this is a monumentous win, but we're not psychos for doubting you guys, right? You have a great team at home, slightly less great team on the road. Last night was incredible in the home environment. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the tier rankings. But, yeah, I mean, I was talking to my girlfriend, I think, because we were watching the game together, and I think it was like 6 points Iowa State was down to Houston with like 5.5 left or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I wanted Iowa State to win. So I'm frustrated at that point because I'm like, man, you're not going to get this game back from Houston. It's not happening.
We were Cyclone City yesterday.
And she's saying, because she's not involved, obviously. She's not underestimating Iowa State like you or I. She goes, it's a lot of time left. You really never know. And I was like, nah, it's Houston. You don't understand. It's Kelvin Sampson. Could have had a V8. You know what I mean? I'm just big dummy over here. Underestimated the Cyclones, and they get it done. But, yeah, what a win. What a game that was, Damon. I have a fun stat for you. It would not be a segment if I didn't have a fun stat. Kingston Flemings, right? We talk about Iowa State's defense, and it's elite. It is up there with the best of them. Houston's defense, incredible as well. Arizona's defense, atop the country as well. Against top 25 opponents, right, in a single season with a minimum of 4 games. So that's a pretty decent sample size. At least 4 games or more against top 25 teams. The list of D1 freshmen over the last 30 seasons to average 25 or more points a game against those ranked opponents. Kevin Durant in 2006-2007.
Decent.
Michael
player.
Beasley in 07-08, which great bucket getter.
Bro, look up Michael Beasley's college stats if you want to see something absolutely nuts, something that'll blow your mind. He's one of the best college players literally of all time.
Might have been smoking blunts before the game and getting buckets during it. You know what I mean? Like Trae Young in 2017-18 and now Kingston Flemings in 2025-26. Now, if that is not a short list that tells you that this kid is an elite bucket getter, I don't know what to tell you. There was some, and I don't really like to do this often on the show, Damon, but this is valid. There was some idiot in my replies last night that said Kingston Flemings is trash. And I responded and said, we're not watching the same sport if you think that guy is not good at it. Because
was that a U of A fan?
I think it was like a Big 12 in general guy. Like, I don't even think it was like a Arizona, KU. I don't think it was any of that. I think it was just a guy. But either way, Kingston Flemings is so good that I want to ask
people
you,
to say any opinion
100%.
on the internet, dude.
100%.
That's cool. I mean, that's ridiculous. You couldn't watch Kingston Fleming for 1 second and come away with that he's not an absolute baller.
Yeah, and Jason McCoy, he does do that sometimes. He does jump in the air, and you're not supposed to leave your feet for passes. But also, like, the stuff he is able to do under pressure. Like, he was trapped in that corner. There's the viral Tyler Rucker video going out right now that he got the clip where Kingston Flemings is trapped in the corner of the half court. And he's able to ethically not just hunt for fouls, and he's able to get out of that trap, not pass the ball, and go re-attack and get a mid-range bucket. And I just think you can't find that stuff anymore, really. You really can't. And I wanted to ask you this, Damon. I don't think that I would, but wouldn't you think of taking him 1 this year in the draft? If you had the first overall pick and you had the pick of the whole litter, you're giving a sniff to Kingston Flemings, right?
Yeah, he's got to be a top 5 guy at this point with the combination of 3-level scoring that you're seeing, with the way that he elevates his game against the best opponents on his schedule, the way that he's taken over, almost being the leading force on the offense of this Houston team, a team that, as we already talked about, has 2 guards on it that are seniors and that are incredibly experienced in Emmanuel Sharp and Milos Uzan, who Milos Uzan was the guy last year.
Yeah.
And now he takes a back seat to the freshman Kingston Flemings. And for Kelvin Sampson to be okay with that, I think speaks volumes in and of itself. Like, would I take him above AJ Dybantsa, Darren Peterson, maybe even Cameron Boozer? Probably not. But
I would take him above Boozer.
I'm having the conversation. Yeah, I think that's a one that you're a little bit more, you're talking about a little bit more so, but probably not those top 2 guys. But yeah, he should be in the convo with how insane this freshman class is. And yeah, that stat is ridiculous. And he continues to, as I said, elevate against his tougher opponents, which is extremely impressive for a freshman as well. Like, it just feels like every time I watch a Houston game, it's typically because they're playing a big time team. And I want to see how they're faring against like a top 25 opponent. And every time it's just Kingston Flemings getting 25 points. And you're like, okay, yeah, this guy's ridiculous. By the way, Michael Beasley, 26.2 points per game, 12.4 rebounds per game in his freshman year lone season of college basketball.
Sheesh.
Is that, some of the craziest statistics you'll ever see in your life. 26 and 12.
That's insane.
At Kansas State, by the way.
Freshman, right? At that point?
Yeah, freshman.
Unbelievable numbers. Brian Edwards in the chat says, has Koa slipped out of the first round talk? I don't think he's definitely not slipped out of the first round discussion. I think that is solidified where he is. It's just to varying degrees of high or low. But I will say, I think that bro has definitely fallen from like that solidified top 10 pick range in a year that is so stacked all the way down to like that 14 to 16 range right now. And it feels like Braden Burries is kind of the one on this team that is kind of climbing those mock drafts, while Koa Peat, for a variety of reasons, is kind of slipping down just ever so slightly. But
yeah, I still think Koa Peat can salvage his season depending on how he ends it out, depending on the March Madness run in particular, because that's what all eyes are going to be focused on, right? And you saw that early in the season, all eyes focused on Arizona, Florida because of how early it was in the year, and Koa Peat was the talk of college basketball. And I think that, not that I'm saying he's going to start dropping 30 pieces all of a sudden once you get to tournament time. But I do think that there's a world where this kind of lull in the Koa Peat season is something that gets forgotten about completely. If we just handle business in March, that's really all it comes down to. That's what Arizona fans care about at the end of the day, and that's what college basketball fans will remember.
Yeah, and I think also Koa Peat's a guy, like you're alluding to, that like if he gets healthy, most importantly, and then enters the tournament and balls out, it could easily be like logically justified to be like, well, he's healthy and this is the guy he's been the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I think that could actually genuinely really benefit him going into that. But we are going to talk a lot more about Arizona related stuff because we got BYU Preview, Arizona versus BYU tomorrow night. And then we have our Big 12 tier rankings to wrap up today's show. So stick around, leave a like. We'll be right back after our first ad break. What you got?
And after I get this one last joke off, that Iowa State fan put him in a jail cell right next to Shohei Ohtani. And if you watch the PHNX D-Back show, you love that joke.
Damon, they say if you want a head coach, call a specialist. Call Tommy Lloyd, right? Don't call Mick Cronin. Right? If you have been involved in a serious injury or accident involving potential wrongful death, there's only one number to call when you do your research. Because that's what's most important, doing your research before you join up with a law team or an attorney. But when you do your research, you'll find this number, 602-783-8841, the number of the husband and wife law team, Mark and Alexis Breyer, bringing hundreds of years of experience to the table in trial situations. And they are specialists. The Arizona State Bar certifies less than 1% of all lawyers as specialists in serious injury and wrongful death litigation.
How many?
Less than 1%, Damon. It's an insanely low number of people that are actually specialists in this field. But Mark and Alexis Breyer are those specialists, and so are the attorneys on their husband and wife law team. So if you've had a serious injury, should contact them at 602-783-8841 or visit their website at husbandandwifelawteam.com. That link is in our show notes below. Let them know the good people over at PHNX sent you.
It is 2026, Mr. Kevin Thomas, and that means that we are just getting started on our home renovation projects in the year of our Lord. And where do we go from here if you're the ASU Sun Devils, right? You got a lot of things to fix in your own arena in Tempe, right? And who are you going to call? You're going to call the Window Depot. Window Depot has been serving Arizona since 2002, and while they started with just windows, they're now way more than just a window store. They do windows, doors, skylights, cabinets, countertops, sinks, and so much more.
Whoa.
Everything that you could possibly need if you're upgrading your dump of an arena. And that's why Window Depot is the only choice to make in your home renovation that you're doing in the near future here. Of course, they have 7 locations across the great state of Arizona, from Phoenix, Tucson, Marana, and Chandler. And there's one near you wherever your job site or project is. There's a reason that job site coordinators love the Window Depot, Kevin. It is because it does not require a membership, and it is the cheapest price points that you will find when trying to get supplies for these projects. And of course, guys like me and Kevin can just show up and walk in the Window Depot and come out with whatever we need. You don't need a membership, as I said, like a lot of these renovation type stores where you're only getting the lowest price points if you're paying them a subscription. That's not the Window Depot. They're here to serve Arizona citizens, and if I'm Graham Rossini, I'm hitting them up ASAP to get this job done. Get this house built for Jerome Tang next season, Kevin, because the windowdepot.com is going to be your spot that you're going to want to get started on your next project today. Stop by one of the Window Depot's 7 Arizona locations and see for yourself why they're way better than just a window store. Stop in and give the Window Depot a call. Their team will help you get exactly what you need. Man, I'm rooting for those Sun Devils to hit up the Window Depot, Kevin. They need it because that arena is an absolute dump.
I mean, not much more needs to be said on that. And the best way to fix it would be Window Depot because they have everything you need, literally. I mean, you could probably fix an entire basketball court at Window Depot. Tucson 520 says Tang and Tempe. I like it. I would love it if I thought it was realistic. I would be. I don't know what's the picket sign. That's what I would be doing. I'd be picket signing outside of Desert Financial, whatever the hell it is. McHale North is what I like to call it. But I'd be picketing outside going, sign Tang, right? But he's not going to do it because they're the Devils, and he don't want to associate with no Devils. So, I would love it, but I don't think
you realize how goated this would be with the curtain of distraction right there and 12 people in the crowd, Kevin. Are you? You're not realizing how electric that sounds.
I'm not seeing the vision. Damn. Well, look, Damon, BYU is coming to town to a real arena, not to not to Mikhail North or anything like of the
or
sort.
any other name that anyone in the chat might have for it.
Yeah, definitely not any other names. It's definitely just anyway. They're coming to Mikhail Center, chopping off the second half. Or they're coming to Mikhail Center. BYU versus Arizona tomorrow night. Damon and I will be live pregame, postgame. You know we're there for every game, pregame, postgame, talking ball. But previewing this matchup, Richie Saunders is out. We have to start there. Tore his ACL just, I think, 45 seconds into their game against Colorado. And I think that obviously this is a huge loss for BYU. That goes without saying. But just how big of a loss is it? Because I think a lot of people, if you're not like super closely following the Big 12, right? Like a lot of people in this chat, like Damon and I are, we get it, right? BYU, this is a huge loss for them. I think some people more nationally might be like, oh, isn't that shooter that BYU has? They still got Dybantsa. They still got Wright. They're going to be okay. Let me read you this stat. The gap that Richie Saunders is leaving at BYU is legitimately like 200 shots this season. This is team high in field goal attempts in order. Dybantsa with the team high 388. Wright 344. Saunders 305. Now, Kennard Davis Jr. is the only other player with at least 100 shots from the field. Not 200, not 250, not 275, not at least 300. The only other player with at least 100 shots from the field is Kennard Davis with 156. So you're talking about an 150 shot difference between Richie Saunders and the next guy, right, in terms of usage, right? Now, Brian Edwards says it in the chat, and I 100% agree. Richie Saunders is the straw that stirred BYU's coffee. That's just the way it goes. And if you don't believe me, believe their head coach, Kevin Young.
Not coffee, by the way. Decaf coffee, maybe.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, they're pop. It stirs the dirty pop that they use up there. Either way, if you don't believe me, believe Kevin Young, who said this after the game against Colorado. I think it sucked the life out of the gym, if I'm being honest. You never want to see an injury to any player, but definitely not to someone who's the heart and soul of our team and bleeds BYU blue. And I think usually, like, for example, Tommy Lloyd. Now, this is a much different situation because Koa Peat's injury does not seem to be – maybe he's just hurt. It might not be like an injury at all. It might not be a long-term thing. This is clearly an ACL injury, clearly a career ender, quite frankly, for Richie Saunders in terms of the college side of things. But Tommy Lloyd, like after – and I won't even use Tommy Lloyd. You hear coaches come out after minor, injuries or even major injuries to more rotational players, and they say, I'm gutted for so-and-so, but we got the horses in this locker room, and they're going to help boost their teammates, and we're going to still chase our goals. I think to hear Kevin Young say this after a loss, right? Or not a loss, sorry, pardon me. The loss of Richie Saunders in a win against Colorado. He's not talking about, we still had the guys to beat this Colorado team and Tad Boyle, who I have a lot of respect for. He's saying it kind of sucked the life out of the squad and the fans, and you never want to see it, and this guy bleeds BYU blue more than anybody. It really kind of shows just how important he is to that team. I know people think it's the AJ Dybantsa show, but that team is nothing without Richie Saunders, and I think we're going to see that going forward. It's going to be a whole lot of Dybantsa hero ball, but they needed Saunders to even make it close against Kansas. They needed Saunders last year to get it done in Tucson, and they also needed Tony Padilla. But you get what I'm saying. Like, Richie Saunders is integral to what they're trying to do over there in Provo, and without him, just how hard is it going to be for them to upset Arizona come tomorrow, Damon?
With Saunders out, one thing is clear. BYU needs Tony Padilla out there on the court for this one to even be close. It's a bona fide fact, I'd argue, at this point, Kevin. But yeah, I think, in a more serious note, Richie Saunders was the main driving reason that BYU made a comeback against Arizona earlier this year in Provo. He hit a couple huge shots down the stretch of that game when Arizona was kind of throwing up all over itself. It takes two to tango, though. BYU needed Arizona to start capitulating and for them to make all of their shots at the end of the game. And Richie Saunders was making all of those shots because he's an incredible shot maker. That's what he brings to the table, is his scoring ability. And you looked at BYU's team and you already felt they were pretty thin, right? Like, Keita is a good role-playing center, athletic, can, rim run and block a couple shots and throw it down on somebody. But he's not really like, a guy that you want to, I think, give a larger role to. I don't know that he's necessarily that guy. You had three guys on your team and you were paying him like it, right? You were paying AJ Dybantsa a ridiculous amount of money. You were paying Rob Wright the most money of any player in the transfer portal, and I can't even imagine what it took to, retain Richie Saunders, who I know Kevin Young says bleeds blue, but that dude wasn't taking a discount to come back to BYU this year.
He bleeding green too.
When he's seeing what the guys next to him are making, and he's like, "Are you kidding me? I've been here for years." And I'm not saying he's making Rob Wright and Dybantsa money, but he's making just below that, right? And for good reason. He's a great player. This is a huge loss. They were essentially a 3-man team, it felt like a lot when you watched BYU, and now they're a 2-man team. And so what does that bring? I think that what that means is BYU needs a Christian Anderson and JT Toppin-like performance out of their 2 stars tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Can they get it? Probably not, because that's the best duo in the country that I just named right now. And that's a duo that has gone toe-to-toe with Duke, gone toe-to-toe with Houston, gone toe-to-toe with Arizona, and has found a way to win those basketball games in extremely impressive fashion, whereas BYU has not shown that this year. And those guys have not shown the Anderson and Toppin level shot making at the end of games to win those massive, win in those massive moments. So for me, I think that this destroys what BYU wants to do as a team. They were essentially a 3-man show with a bunch of role players in between. Now they're a 2-man show, and I think they need a generational duo type performance out of the 2 guys that are making $11 million on their roster, or else I think Arizona wins this game regardless of who's available for Arizona and who's not.
It is truly going to take a JT Toppin Big 12 historic level of performance for AJ Dybantsa in this one, on top of Rob Wright continuing his hot level of play, because we talk about him having an expanded role in this one, but Rob Wright has been playing very well recently, especially in the scoring department. I believe he had 39 against Colorado. I'm double checking that right now because that is a large number. Yeah, he had 39 against Colorado on really, really good efficiency. Now that's Colorado. Yeah. Preface, that is Colorado. But he also, against his former team, got 30 against Baylor. And Baylor, we know that they're not having a really good year. Scott Drew, still a really good coach. Tunde Yesufu, still an incredible defender. They still have some dogs over there that can make it hard on you to drop just 30. It's not just easy to walk against Baylor and drop 30. It might be easy to beat Baylor as a team, but as a one individual to drop 30 against Baylor this year is not the easiest thing. And also the efficiency in that game was really good. However, he played 40 minutes in both those games. Against Houston, he shot 9 field goals total, made 6 of them, and they lost. And I just think in these last 2 games, he's had the benefit of extremely high usage against lesser opponents. Same thing with AJ Dybantsa, where he's a baller across the board. Do not get me wrong. But when he plays more elite side defenses, it just kind of feels like it's AJ Dybantsa's ball. And it's if you get to touch it, maybe you get to touch it and maybe you can do something with it. But it's AJ Dybantsa's possession, and he's going to get his mid-range attempt. He's either going to get to the free throw line.
Set a screen for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come set a screen, get the hell out of his way, let him get to the free throw line. He's either going to shoot some free throws or hit that mid-range jumper. And it's going to be a lot of that in Tucson. I am interested to see how Kevin Young tries to attack Arizona's defense, because Arizona's not exactly super healthy either now, right? And we're talking about depth, and we're talking about how we don't think BYU is that deep. I think we're going to get an injury report update I've seen come out tonight, potentially, for this game tomorrow. So we'll see what Koa Peat's status is, if he's questionable, out, available, what it is. We'll see Dwayne Aristode's status with his illness, the plague that he's got, if he is out, in, whatever. And we'll know a lot more about Arizona's rotation. But I'm interested to see how BYU attacks Arizona, because I think Arizona stands a great chance to win this game because of Richie Saunders' injury. However, they still got to execute the game plan. They still have to go out and slow down AJ Dybantsa. They still have to go out and stop Rob Wright, and they still have to make buckets on the other end. And without Koa Peat, without Dwayne Aristode, you have a lot less to work with on that side of things, Damon.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Zona alum here puts in the chat that, as good as JT Toppin and Christian Anderson were for Tech, they still wouldn't have won that game if Atwell doesn't hit the biggest shot, and are probably the 2 biggest shots of the entire night. And I agree with that 100%. But that doesn't happen if Christian Anderson doesn't keep Texas Tech in it in that first half with his shooting display. That doesn't happen if JT Toppin wasn't the entire Texas Tech half-court offense for 15 minutes of the second half of basketball, of which he was. Just back to the basket, going on Karchenkov on an island, and finding a way to, have the ball drop in the basket over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, essentially like Texas Tech was, a team that I think that, Kevin and I talked a lot about not having the peripheral pieces to necessarily beat Arizona. And they proved us wrong, right? Like that, great game from Donovan Atwell. If you look at the box score, doesn't look all that special, but especially when you factor in the moments in which he hit his biggest shots of the night, I just don't think BYU has the horses to even keep it that close, Kevin. I don't think that as great as AJ Dybantsa is, and he might be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, he's not JT Toppin when it comes to college production, Big 12 production. I mean, that's the conference player of the year last year. That dude is automatic, bro. And Christian Anderson is probably the best point guard in this conference. Him or Kingston Flemings, it's debatable probably between those two. So I mean, I don't think BYU has the chops to necessarily keep this one close with those guys being the engine behind keeping it close, but it's possible, right? I mean, they are, as I said, probably the highest paid duo, as Brian Edwards puts in the chat, at $10.5 million in the entire country. And so you have to respect them to an extent, and they've both done it before with insane games where they go off. But it feels like Texas or BYU is now like they are square pegging themselves in terms of like, we need to have these guys put up like 55, 60 points, or else this one's not even going to be close.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And Brian Edwards is just honestly, like usual, but especially today, just full of gems in the chat, because we're talking about Donovan Atwell in the game against Texas Tech. Kennard Davis Jr., maybe don't let him behind the wheel of a car, but let him shoot some threes out there on the court, because he did play very well against Arizona in that first time out where they did lose by just 3. He went 5 for 8 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and had 15 points, a rebound, a personal foul, and an assist.
St. Louis, Missouri product, by the way, Kevin.
Yes, SIU proud. SIUE proud. I don't know what their thing is, but either way, like, he is a guy. If you're looking at a way that BYU could make this really hard on Arizona, it would be to employ the same strategy that Kansas has employed, the same strategy that Texas Tech employed to get their wins. Pack the paint with your big centers. You got Abdullah and you got Kaida, right? Those are 2 big, strong MFers. And if you can get them to pack the paint, force Arizona a little bit further out in their offense, and then on the other end, if Wright and Dybantsa can run their pick and roll 75% of the way that Christian Anderson and JT Toppin did, it makes it hard on Arizona. My only question would be, though, I get the premise, right, that you'd want to pick and roll Arizona to death with Dybantsa and Wright. But is that fair to what Texas Tech did? Texas Tech has one of the best pick and roll offenses in the country, and they've had Anderson and Toppin for 2 years now. I mean, there's a level of familiarity there that is different than with Wright and Dybantsa. Dybantsa's in there, respectfully, to get his check, ball out, go to the draft, and maybe win a ring in the meantime, but it's kind of the 4th thing on that list. Rob Wright, get the check, ball out, maybe win, maybe go to the NBA one day if that's the dream, right? But I feel like there's a different level of familiarity there with that pick and roll, and it's hard to just like, oh, Saunders is out, time to kill him in the pick and roll. You got to work on that. They're talented enough to do it, but I'm just asking the question.
Here's why I don't think that's I don't know if they are talented enough to do it, because I don't think Christian Anderson is levels as a passer on Rob Wright.
Yeah.
Levels, Kevin. Like, Rob Wright's a great player, and I was extremely high on Rob Wright all offseason, hand up. Like, I really like Rob Wright, the scorer and the initiator, but I don't necessarily think that he's like an elite level passer. And on top of that, AJ Dybantsa is not a screen setter.
Yeah.
JT Toppin is.
Toppin's physical.
JT Toppin will set a screen on you, get the switch, and then bully whoever switched on him. Whereas AJ Dybantsa is the guy who wants the screen set for him, right? So I think that, you might see pick and roll with Kada with those guys a lot. And you might see them try to pick and roll us to death with their bigs, but I don't know that their bigs are good enough to really provide a crazy threat on the roll side of things. And, as long as you stay consistent going over top of screens and sending a second man at both Wright and Dybantsa, I think that this one, should hopefully work out in Arizona's favor. So, it's interesting. I've thought that since the game happened on Saturday, like since I've known Richie Saunders was going to be out, that honestly, I think this game is going to come down to what can Rob Wright and AJ Dybantsa do? Can they put up superstar level performances? And we saw that in our last game. So it's not impossible. I just think that Christian Anderson and JT Toppin are better fit to kind of take down Arizona in that way because of their skill sets than those two guys on BYU are.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, like, it's just, like I said, it's just hard to just snap a whole different offense onto a team in the middle of the season when you're third most leading usage guy, a guy that I will add, by the way, in Richie Saunders, who is averaging career highs in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and shooting almost 40% from three. That's a hard guy to replace. And you can't really just be like, all right, guys, today we're going to be a pick and roll heavy monster, and then just expect that to execute the way that Texas Tech has tried to build their team around that for 2 years now. So it's a different level of attrition there. It's a different level of familiarity with it. So I don't think BYU is going to be able to kill Arizona in the pick and roll the same way Texas Tech was. I don't think that they're going to be able to honestly defend the paint the same way that Kansas did because their bigs are not as athletic as one Flory Badunga or as JT Toppin is. Yeah. They're a little bit more big bruisers, which I think helps Tobe, helps Mo on the boards get around those guys. And we're going to talk about Koa Peat here in a second. But if he's not in the game, having those guys out there as opposed to Toppin and Badunga really help you a lot. But I do want to talk about the health aspect of this team, what we expect the team to look like tomorrow night, because like I said, we might get an update on that from the Big 12 injury report tonight, so we'll have more tomorrow in the pregame. But just it's time to speculate, folks. Join us on the other side of this break. Leave a like, drink your water, don't go anywhere. Damon, here in the Valley, we love to drink local, hang out local, but why not support some local edible companies? That's why I love our friends over at Pure Edibles, a Freedom State-founded company right here at Noble Herb Dispensary. They are out in Flagstaff where they started, but now they're all across the state in over 130 dispensaries. And you're wondering, what makes Pure Edibles different than some of these other edibles that are out there? It's because they're not covered in chemicals. They're not covered in all that sugary nonsense. It's a full-fledged candy company offering a variety of edible goodies with CBN, CBG, CBD, and marijuana-derived THC. Some of those varieties, though, gummies, hard candies, chews, that like Starburst variety of kicks. I love those. I love the gummies as well. I also love sharing with my friends, and you can do that with Pure Edibles because they're designed to bite, rip, tear in half, to share with Damon, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever you got going on with our friends over at Pure Edibles. So make sure to check them out. And if you're into drinking local, Pure Edibles can help you with that too because they have the Noble Road Tower Station all-in-one IPA. That is an IPA infused, I will say. I don't know if that's the proper word, but the flavors, the hoppy flavors are all up in that all-in-one cart. So check out our friends at Pure Edibles. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles at one of the over 130 dispensaries that dispense their good products.
Kevin talks about supporting local, and there's nothing more local than a nice, good Circle K, Kevin. It's America's Thirst Stop. It's Arizona's Thirst Stop. And if you're not an Inner Circle Rewards member yet, you are just missing out on some free savings, guys. It's so simple to sign up. You download a free app. You choose an email, you plug in a password, and you're done. Then every time that you go up and fill at the tank, all you got to do is put your phone number in, and the savings are right there in front of you. 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Then every time you fill up after that, 3 cents off per gallon until you hit premium status like me and Kevin, and you get 5 cents off per gallon every single time that you fill up at the tank. And over the course of an entire year, guys, that is some pretty decent savings. Of course, they also have Inner Circle Fuel Days all throughout the year. They got about one every month. The one from this month in February just passed on February 12th, but there should be one upcoming here pretty soon. We'll keep you updated on that as soon as we figure out when that next fuel day is going to be. But 40 cents off per gallon on fuel days only for Inner Circle Rewards members, guys. It's unbelievable savings. The savings don't stop there. There's snack deals, meal deals, caffeine deals, you name it. Circle K is trying to save you money, and all you have to do is become an Inner Circle member for free. So download that Inner Circle app for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details.
Welcome on back to the AZ Wildcats pod, as Damon does have his football, yet still. Make sure to keep it high and tight there. No fumbles.
Ball security is job security, Kevin.
1,000%.
Espo told me if I fumble, I'm done.
Wow, that's crazy. One more thing on the BYU preview side of things. We have some health things to discuss. And I more so speculate on because we don't have any updates as of yet. So I more so have questions I want to ask the general room here of all of our friends and family watching the show. There's 3 questions here. If no Pete and no Aristode. How do you read this game? Do you still think it's Arizona by whatever? Or is this a situation where if you don't have Peat and you don't got Aristode, even though they don't got Saunders, that could be a real equalizer? How do you read that one?
Yeah, I think, if you have one of those guys, I'm feeling extremely confident about this game. The only reason why I wouldn't be feeling extremely confident without both of them is solely because I just think your rotation is so short, right? Like, you have a 6-man rotation there. Do you play Evan Nelson? Do you play CD Gay? That's the conversation that needs to be had in that scenario. But I'm comfortable with 7. I really well and truly am. I just 6 is where we start getting a little bit tight, Kevin.
Yeah, 6 is where you start to get worried. But like you said, if we don't have Koa Peat, but we do have Dwayne Aristode, if he's healed up from his illness, how do you feel about the game then? No Peat, but yes, Aristode.
I'm extremely confident. That's what I'm hoping for, actually, and as kind of similar in what Ernesto is saying here in the chat of like, I kind of don't want to see Koa play. I kind of want to see Koa sit because he clearly doesn't look right, and I do feel like he's almost hurting himself in that he is trying to play through it. And it's so weird, Kevin. We've been talking about this off air, a little bit on air, but like the idea that Koa Peat is like this soft weenie baby who is like sitting out and caring more about his NBA career, when I think from our perspectives and the perspectives of people that are, in and around Koa Peat on a daily basis, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's the opposite, probably. Like, me, you, Saul on the post game all said that we think Koa Peat was pushing to play and the team shut him down based off of what it looked like, right? Based off of Koa sitting on the sideline, looking healthy, looking active and engaged in what game is at hand, and really not being in the locker room for all that long. Like, it seemed like this was almost predetermined. Like, hey, Koa, you haven't looked right the last 2.5 games since that ASU injury. We're going to see what you got tonight, see if it looks better than it has recently. And then they saw what it looked like, and they said, that's not going to cut it. We got to sit him out. We got to protect him from himself. But it sucks to see Koa take as many shots as he has recently.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's truly ridiculous. When you see a guy that you actually know is trying to go over the last couple games, and we're all talking about how he doesn't have the same lift, doesn't have the same power behind his drives, his back downs, whatever, and we're talking about maybe he's hit the wall, maybe he's banged up, and then he actually does end up being banged up and comes out of a game where he tried to go and did not look good, and then got sat down for the second half, and then people are going at him like, this is just Darren Peterson, and he's just protecting his draft stock. And it's ridiculous. It is truly ridiculous. I think if Koa Peat does sit out this game against BYU, it's not because he's protecting his draft stock, which I know we're going to see in our comments. I know we're going to see it on Twitter, especially if, knocking on wood, heaven forbid, Arizona does not get the job done against BYU without Koa Peat. People are going to be out and about talking about Koa Peat. And it's not fair to him. It's not fair to his health. It's not fair to the team. Because as Prim said on Twitter, and look, Damon, I think Prim is a benevolent psycho. I think he is a guy who truly loves his team and truly wants the best for his team and has a very high standard. Sometimes it just comes out a little bit psycho. He was calm as hell. We're cut from the
same cloth in that regard.
Yes, you are. And he was calm as hell after the Texas Tech loss. And I reposted it. I said, look, if Prim is chilling, you should also be chilling. And Prim said today, I think it was, something very smart. And you and I are not really in the locker room at all. You and I are not a part of the team. We're not helping rebound after practices. We're not planning game plans with Tommy Lloyd and Ken Nakagawa. We're not recruiting with Murph. We're not in the inner workings of the program. You and I are what's qualified as media/fans, right? So we're allowed to react. We're allowed to have takes about the team. We're allowed to, if there's a bad loss, be like, that's unacceptable and blah, blah, blah. But what Prim was saying was, what good is it to tear down Koa Peat, to tear down some of the players on this team if they're slumping or whatnot, right? Or if they're injured or whatnot. What good does that do? Now, there's a line, right? There's a difference between there's a line between critiquing and just hating, right? I think Koa Peat, while he is not a perfect player, he's not a perfect player. He can't shoot really. He really can't shoot free throws. When he gets to the free throw line, you and I were talking about it yesterday, it feels like recently his bag has kind of been limited to like shuffle, drive, shuffle, back down. One of those two. He's not perfect. You can critique Koa Peat, but don't hate on him. What's the purpose? Are you in Arizona? Do you want to see Koa Peat succeed or not? When he signed to the school, half the people critiquing him were calling him Mr. Arizona and saying he's this and saying he's awesome. He goes down with what seems to be a legitimate knock, and all of a sudden it's, oh, well, he's uninterested and he doesn't care. It's ridiculous, man. I think we should be more focused on actionable things. What are some actionable critiques we can give the team? Actionable, constructive criticism you can give, as opposed to just tearing down people. It's not necessary, right? And you and I, like I said, we're kind of in between both worlds. Because doing the podcast thing, our job is not necessarily to just flowers and rainbows the team. That's not what our job is to do. Our job is to do that constructive criticism, walking the line between critiquing and being fans. But if you're just a fan, what is the point of tearing down the team that you love so much? Unless they really deserve it, which in this case, they don't. Does it make any sense to you, Damon? Because it makes no sense to me.
No, it certainly doesn't. Listen, I can get pretty negative. Kevin knows that. He spends a lot of time with me, too much time, some would say. But I don't get negative about things like that. And I'm not going to get on Koa Peat for, as you said, seems to be a very legitimate injury. Like, as you said, when you started the question that kind of started this topic is like, I hope that Aristode is healthy enough to play from his illness and that Koa Peat is given the rest that he needs to get back to being able to help this team win, because he truly is one of this team's best players. And our ceiling is incredibly limited without him. It's astronomical with him. And you need Koa Peat and what he brings to the table, because without him, I think you're still a great paint team, but you're not the best paint team I've ever maybe seen in my entire life. And with him, you might be, right? So it's like, that's the difference. And that's what your team is built off of. That's what makes you a championship contender, is your rebounding and your ability to put points in the paint at all times, no matter who your opponent is, / get to the free throw line. I think those things go hand in hand, right? But you need Koa. I think it's been unfair. I hope to see him get a little bit more grace from this fan base. As you said, Kevin, same people that would be asking for autographs if they saw him in person.
Dude, I guarantee there were 3 burners that were calling him every name except for Koa Peat on the timeline that were in the line that was 3 miles long to get an autograph from Koa Peat 2 weeks ago. I guarantee it. I guarantee there were some kids in that line that were like texting their buddies like, hey, I'm like 3 guys away from meeting Koa and Braden and the boys. Gets out the line going, dude, they were so cool. They're so baller. We're undefeated. Life is so good. Koa Peat gets injured. Man, this soft. Beep, 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 beep. Like, bro, it doesn't make any sense.
He's not Koa Peterson.
That's awesome.
He's not Koa Peterson.
Yeah, shout out to, I think Brian said that earlier, but you combined it and made it a thing. Like the Koa Peterson. I love it. The alley-oop from Brian to the slam dunk from Damon.
Absolutely. That's just a meeting of the minds. Me and my guy Brian just back and forth all the time, every day on this podcast. But
before we move on, Damon, to our Big 12 tier rankings, which we do got to get to, but actionable critique. I was just saying, we don't need to get on here and hate on nobody, or we got to give actionable things to do. One way to fix this, if Koa Peat is out for BYU, is to expand the rotation. We saw C.D. Gay get a couple minutes last game against Texas Tech. He had a pretty cool play in there, but he didn't look necessarily like big minutes ready. The bones are there of a really productive Big 12 basketball player, but he's not got the experience yet. Tyler Warden, months ago, I think he's coined himself Ty Stradamus now these days, but he was saying like,
can you give yourself that title?
He did. I don't know if you can, but he did. But yeah, to his credit, he was right. He was saying like months ago that during these blowouts, why not give CD Gay like 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Because if, heaven forbid, you lose a guy throughout the course of the year, now you're just throwing a guy who has never played high-level Big 12 basketball out there and telling him to sink or swim, right? And that's kind of what's happening now, because now Koa Peat might be down, Dwayne Aristode might be down, and you need CD Gay to play potentially some high-leverage minutes in this game potentially. So people in the chat have been talking about it. I don't think CD Gay is like ready for those kind of minutes right now. I think he shows really good flashes that have me excited for the player he could be, but I need some more minutes from CD Gay before I'm ready to say that he's able to fully expand the rotation to hit to 9 potential guys, right? I don't think that CDK is quite there yet. Do you think we could see an expanded rotation tomorrow, though?
Yeah, I do. I'm looking at the Colorado game for BYU just to kind of see how many minutes that their backup center played in that one. He played Abdullah, right?
Yeah.
He played. It looks like 23 minutes in that game, which is quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good amount of run. I think granted OT game, so I'll throw that out there as well. But I think specifically, I'm looking at when Abdullah gets called up by Kevin Young off the bench, and that's when I'm saying maybe it's time for CDK.
Really?
I don't want CDK on Keita. If I can avoid it. We had to see CDK on Toppin, and it didn't absolutely ruin us for a minute or whatever it was, but I think that was because that was by design, because we needed to stop that from becoming a thing that got out of hand pretty fast, right? And CD got his bucket, and shout out CD for that rep there, but it didn't exactly look like the most sustainable bucket I've ever seen in my entire life. I do think that I'm looking specifically for that backup center matchup, and if we need a little bit of rest for a guy like Tobe or a guy like Mo, because they're not used to playing into the mid-30s of minutes, because they've had such almost a strict rotation of like 25 minutes all year long. I'm waiting to put CD in to get that matchup against Abdullah Ahmad for sure. In particular,
I know you got to kind of pick one. You got to kind of pick a struggle there. Either if CD's going to get in the game, he has to either play against Keita or Abdullah. But Abdullah is not a walk in the park for CDK either. That's a big physical dude who has played in the G League, right? So he has some professional experience. He knows how to work in the paint. He's not. He is their backup center. And I'm not trying to say that you're saying this, but he's not just like a walk in the park for CDK. So when you said that, I was like, I'm not sure I want him against Abdullah. And then as you were explaining it, I was like, well, then who do I want him against?
Because there's not really. Yeah,
and you don't want to throw him out there against AJ, right? So it's like, who is CD going to guard? So it's going to be really interesting to see how the staff balances tomorrow's lineup and rotation with the maybe lack of availability of both Peat and Aristode. We'll see. I would assume Aristode plays tomorrow. If I had to bet money on it,
it just seems like that's not where we're trending,
right?
Kevin. I don't understand it for the life of me. I keep saying it, but does this man have the plague?
That's why I was like, if I had to bet money on it, I would assume he plays, because it's been almost. I would assume he got sick against probably traveling back from Kansas. I would assume that's probably if I was to speculate. It's been almost a week. I feel like.
Could it be COVID? Is that why he's away from the team? I mean, I know it's reckless speculation here.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be, I guess, one of the only things that makes sense as to why he's been so shut down. It feels like, despite having quote unquote the flu, because usually the flu feels like it lasts. It's a 2-3 day thing, and then all of a sudden it's the steps to recovery, right? And it just feels like it's much more severe than that, or it's at least we've been led to believe that.
Yeah, or and this was something we talked about in the post-game show, potentially Tommy Lloyd was just being cautious with his wording after Texas Tech, and he anticipates Dwayne to play, but doesn't have good information that he's going to be healthy, because you really can't just tell the future. So maybe he's just getting out ahead of his skis and being like, hey, just let's prepare for maybe Dwayne Aristode not playing against BYU, even though he might believe that he's going to play. Right, Sam Albert's in the chat saying it is mono. Again, not sure, but
I haven't experienced that, but I've heard that it's pretty debilitating.
Almost ruined Sam Darnold's career. Look at Sam Darnold now.
Mono. if you guys know, one of the greatest memes that's ever been posted.
Sam Darnold said, I don't know, and this is not a tangent we're really going to get on, but I wanted to, while we're on the topic, he said during the Disney World appearance that he made that his buddies would send him that meme randomly. Anytime they got sick,
that's a good group of pals.
I'm out, and then just send the mono gif of their buddy.
That's how you announce you're not going to the meetup with the boys.
Mono, I'm out.
That's electric. Sorry, boys, can't make it to the bachelor party. Mono.
No, yeah,
that's
incredible.
Great. That is great banter between you and your pals. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we get Dwayne Aristode. If not, hopefully he's at least ready for Houston. But I would caution against Koa Peat and his availability, because I think that he might need just a little bit of a sit down. And I'm not sure that a week is enough for him to suit up against Houston in what is going to be an extremely physical matchup in that game. So I think Koa Peat we're probably without, and hopefully Dwayne Aristode can make it work. But if he can't run, then you're down to an extremely light rotation. You need CD Gay to come in and provide something probably. And you're most likely not going to see Evan Nelson, but I guess it's possible, right? Like it's not entirely out of the question that he could see a little bit of run as well. Kevin, we are an hour into the show, and we got to do our Big 12 tier rankings, which we do every single Tuesday on the AZ Wildcats podcast. So we're going to get into that here very shortly. First off, though, I want to say if you're a supporting club member, thank you so much for your elevated support of this fine podcast. $5 a month. And you guys can get access to custom emojis, members-only content, and just find a way to support your boys a little bit extra on our endeavors here. Support local. That's what I always say. Support your friends here at PHNX Sports or become a diehard. We got a 60% diehard sale right now, Kevin, or I guess maybe that just stopped. But you could become a diehard. We always are having sales, so keep a lookout on the horizon for the next one. You guys can get a free, shirt as part of it. Get that Red Line Turnover Sword shirt, maybe. Access to our Discord where Kevin and I are chatting it up on a daily basis about Arizona Wildcats stuff and so much more. It is a great time over here at PHNX Sports and with the AZ Wildcats podcast in particular. And with that said, why don't we get into our Big 12 tier rankings, Kevin?
Our Big 12 tier rankings for this week, Damon. Now, there has been a lot of shakeup. Arizona has taken 2 straight L's. Houston just lost to Iowa State. BYU is without Richie Saunders. What does that mean for these? And our first team here on the list is going to be BYU. Now, Damon, BYU, we talked about them for the majority of the week. Arizona's upcoming opponent, Richie Saunderless, BYU. I still think this is a B-tier team until proven otherwise. Despite Richie Saunders' injury, I still think they belong to be in that B tier.
I agree with you. I mean, you look at their last couple games, a 5-point win against Baylor and a 4-point win against Colorado. It's not exactly inspiring in general about the team, but I think the B tier was made for B tier BYU. So we're going to keep him there.
Welcome back to the B tier BYU. And even though they don't have Richie Saunders, I still think, like I said, until proven that they're going to lose a bunch of games, this is a team that deserves to be in the B tier. You have potentially the number 1 overall pick on the team. It's basketball. If you have the best player on the floor, you have a good shot at the game. That's a B-tier squad.
And they're a winning record in conference right now as well.
Yes, correct. Next up, TCU. Go Frogs. Damon, where are we going to put the TCU Horned Frogs? Coming off of a win in overtime against Oklahoma State and a win against Iowa State at home. They're on a 3-game win streak. Kansas State, everyone's beating Kansas State right now. But what are we gonna do with the TCU Horned Frogs?
TCU is maybe the weirdest team in the entire conference, I think, Kevin, when you're talking about what they're doing, on a week by week basis. This team can lose to Colorado by 26. This team can beat Iowa State by 7. This team can beat Oklahoma State on the road in overtime. This team can lose to Utah. This team just doesn't make any damn sense, truly, at the end of the day. And I think that just makes them C tier, but they have some good wins. They have some horrible losses, and I really just can't make any rhyme or reason out of TCU in general.
Welcome back to the C tier. TCU, I believe we dropped them into the D tier last week. And when you're on a 3-game win streak that includes Iowa State, you got to get some respect. And that is where I'm at with TCU. They're clearly a team that can compete with the best in the conference on any given night. Now, can they beat the best in the conference on any given night? I'm not so sure, but they have wins over Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Baylor twice as well so far this year. So it feels like, as Brian Edwards says, TCU and Baylor have me scratching my head. TCU is one of those teams where any given night you might get the best version, you might get the worst version. Next up, Damon, we got Texas Tech.
Texas Tech beat Arizona. I feel like they might deserve to be in the S tier, especially with their performances against Duke, Arizona, Houston, and the way that they beat those squads. But they do have 6 losses. They have 6 losses, Kevin. And I feel like that's kind of the differentiator, right? Like an S tier team at this point in the season does not have 6 losses.
I mean, especially one to UCF, right? And no disrespect to UCF. We both like UCF as a team. But if you are truly in that S tier, you're not going to lose a game to UCF, especially following that up with a back-to-back loss against Kansas. Now, albeit it was at home, right? So it's not exactly the Fog Allen environment, but it feels like, as Brian Edwards says, Texas Tech can beat anybody any given night. You have maybe the two best players on the court. You know what I said about AJ Dybantsa? Double it. You got maybe the two best guys on the court. I think this is still an A-tier team. I do not think they belong in the S-tier because, I mean, I know they just defeated Arizona, but like you said, too many losses, too many holes in that team. But any given night, this team could be the national champion. And I would not be like completely shocked if they ended up winning it all, Damon. Texas Tech in the A-tier this week. Next up, we got Utah. Now, this one is easy. This one belongs right back in the D tier.
Yeah, not much more needs to be said about Utah. Utah stinks. Not a great year for Alex Jensen in year one. I think, we were willing to give Alex Jensen some opportunity, Kevin, and it's not completely over, but like for a first-year head coach, you want to see a little bit more life than you've shown in this season. And, Utah is really, really bad. They're in second to last place in the Big 12. D tier.
Now, West Virginia is next on our list. And, well, I will say Ross Hodge has been doing a pretty bang-up job in his first year. He's pretty much been going win-loss, win-loss, win-loss in Big 12 play so far with the first year
Utah's
roster.
in last. They were tied for 15th place with Kansas State.
Equally. Two cheeks of the same ass? Utah and Kansas State? Two cheeks of the same ass. That's what I like to say there. But, yeah, we got West Virginia up. They're coming off a win over UCF. And a loss versus Texas Tech at home by just 7. I think this is still the top of the C tier. Damon, do you disagree?
Yeah, they're C tier. They have the same record in conference right now as BYU. So you could even argue, I think, that they maybe belong a little bit up. But I'm not impressed by the talent on West Virginia. But as you said, I'm impressed by their coaching thus far and their ability to win games against teams that are just, frankly, not very good. To me, that's the sign of a good coach. That's what you wanted to see out of Alex Jensen in Utah this year, beating up on bad teams, right? And West Virginia has managed to find a way to do that. So C tier for me. Next up, UCF, Kevin, a team that we've had in the B tier for large portions of this year. Have they found themselves dropping into the C tier here?
I think they have, Damon. You cannot lose 3 straight games in this conference. I quite honestly don't care who they're against unless it's literally Houston, Kansas, Arizona, like in that order, and stay in your tier, right? 3 straight losses. You lose to Houston on the road, Cincinnati on the road by 20, and then you follow that up with a loss against West Virginia at home. UCF, you have dropped into the C tier. Our sweet Knights. So
if Arizona loses 3 in a row, are we dropping them to A tier automatically?
See, that's kind of what I was getting at. I could actually hear the argument for you dropping them to A tier, but like I said, unless it's against like a Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU kind of a run, I think it's hard, right? Because I guess what I'm saying is you can't lose back-to-back to Cincinnati and West Virginia and then also stack the Houston loss on top of it and then stay in the B tier.
Yeah.
I think the margins are a little bit thicker in the S and A tier, but the B to C difference is a lot less than the difference between B to A or S to A or vice versa, right? So I think that UCF drops into the C tier for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's get into our next team here. Who do we got?
You know who we got, Damon. It's the Arizona Wildcats up next. Now, still an S-tier team in my eyes. Still one of the best teams, not only in the conference, but in the country. And we're going to get to whether or not they should be at the top of the S-tier a little bit later, but still an S-tier team for me, Damon.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you lose to 2 really, really good basketball teams. You lose to 2 top 12 teams, teams that are good enough to really and talented enough to beat anybody, right? They have elite coaches, too. I mean, Bill Self and Grant McCasland are 2 of the best coaches in all of college basketball. I don't think Arizona belongs, or deserves to, take a huge hit here on this rankings because they lose those 2 games. But I do agree with you, Kevin. If they lose to BYU, I know you said that, unless it's that type of run, I don't think BYU without Richie Saunders is a caliber enough of a team for us to give them enough leeway where if they lose, they don't drop a ranking. I think this is an A-tier team. A for Arizona if they lose to BYU on Wednesday.
Oh, no. Yeah. I don't want to see that reality, so please get it done, Tommy Lloyd and company. But, yeah, I think that's still an S-tier team. Still one of the best teams in the country. Still, when March comes around, you're going to have one of the best shots to win the national title. Next up.
And Baylor still stinks.
Baylor. They still stink, Damon. Baylor still stinks. They are still in the D tier. What did you say their conference record was, Baylor? They are
3-9.
Man, yeah, what went wrong, Scott Drew? What went wrong? Maybe it's when you started going to the G League to recruit guys. But we're not going to spend too much more time on the D-tier teams. Let's move on to our next squad. Oh, wait, another D-tier team, Arizona State. Damon, Arizona State still in the D tier for me. Do you disagree?
4-8 somehow, Arizona State in conference. And They pick up wins against Utah. They beat Oklahoma State, which was obviously me and Sam Alberts were here in the chat talking about how that felt like one of the most egregious rat lines we've ever seen in our entire life, and it was. I guess it was. Don't take the cheese. Just let it go, and you won't lose money in the process. But ASU gets that win. I think that makes them, at the upper end of the D tier, I guess, Kevin.
Next up, Damon, we got Cincinnati. Is this still a D tier squad in your eyes?
That one's tough. They're now 6-7, Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a they have despicable season. 3 wins in a row. UCF, the 20-point win against UCF. That's a good win. Then they beat Kansas State and Utah, who are the 2 bottom feeders of the entire conference. But they are close to 500 in this thing. I don't know. I might be willing to put them in the C tier. They have a couple decent wins on their season. Iowa State, I don't know about another one, but
they still have a top 10 defense in the country. So I guess maybe if we're doing the logic of you get dropped for losing 3 straight games, maybe you get 3 straight W's as a team in the D tier. Maybe that gets you back into the C tier.
I mean, listen, like we were just talking about Baylor putting them in the D tier. Baylor's 3-9 in conference, and Cincinnati's 6-7. That's a big difference. I mean, like that's twice as many wins. I feel like Cincinnati belongs in the C tier, even if I don't think that they're very good.
C for Cincinnati. Welcome to the C tier. You are at the tail end. This is your chance. You can either stay up or go down. Finish the conference season strong, Cincinnati, and you will stay in that C tier. Next up, though, Damon, we do have Iowa State. They put on an absolute show last night in Ames. Hilton Magic on full display. Is this an S tier team? Honestly, Damon, if I may speak, I still think it's an A tier team. And every Iowa State Cyclone in the country might send us death threats because I still think they're behind Texas Tech on this list. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Why do they not belong in the S tier, in my opinion? I think it is because when they are not in Hilton Coliseum, they are a drastically different team. Their only 3 losses this year have come on the road. Only one of those 3 losses is to an opponent that I think you can argue they could have or should have lost to in Kansas. Other than that, you lose to Cincinnati on the road. That's not exactly a crazy environment. Then you lose to TCU on the road after stringing together a ton of wins, and people are thinking, okay, Iowa State's fully back. You get turned over a ton at the end of that TCU game, and then you follow that up with a beating of Kansas at home, and then a beating of Houston at home, where you set a program record for the least amount of turnovers in a game with just 3. So you turned it over too much against TCU on the road, barely turned it over at all against Houston at home. What do you do with it, Damon? What do you do?
It's a tough call because I want to put them in the S tier, Kevin. I really do. I mean, they're 23-3.
Yeah,
it's an insane record. They're a top 10 team. They've proven with beating their win against Houston that they can beat anybody. I really liked what I saw from them last night. But when you lose to teams like TCU and Cincinnati, I feel like that's almost a differentiator between you being an S tier team and an A tier team. That's almost like the S tier teams are not losing to those type of opponents. Even without Koa Peat and Dwayne Aristode, I would feel confident that Tommy Lloyd could cook up a game plan that would beat those 2 squads.
Yeah.
So I think it's still A tier, and I'll tell you what, when they have this next 5-game stretch here, Kevin, where they play at BYU, at Utah, which Utah sucks, but it's still elevation game in Salt Lake City. Like it's notoriously not the easiest of places to play. Texas Tech at home, at Arizona, and then Arizona State at home. If they manage to go 4-1 in those games, they're an S tier team. And so essentially you have to beat one of Arizona or Texas Tech there. And that's my differentiator for them. And you got to handle business against those other ones. If you lose to BYU on the road, like we're done. We're not having this conversation anymore. A Richie Saunders list BYU, then you're not an S tier team, right? But I do think that if I was an Iowa State fan, these 2 would be public enemy number 1 and 2, and I'd be sending some threats.
Devil's advocate in the chat going on. We got a bunch of that going on. The arguments are pretty much that Iowa State's level of quality wins kind of eliminates to an extent their level of lack of quality losses. Mm-hmm. And also the road win against Purdue early on in the year, 81-58, has some people feeling like maybe they can be okay away from Hilton Coliseum. I could let the chat handle this one, and it can be at the end of the S tier if you're okay with that, Damon.
Yeah,
because we have been sleeping on Iowa State, and in Iowa State's defense, if they are going to do anything to move into the S tier, it's back-to-back wins against Kansas and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, welcome to the S tier, Iowa State. Still behind Arizona.
S for State.
S for State. Still behind. S for still behind Arizona on our tier rankings, Damon. Next up, though.
That's a little assist from the chat there. Shout out the chat. This is not a Kevin and Damon solely experience. We do this collectively as a family.
Real quick, what do you think about Ernesto's comment? If ISU is A tier, Arizona might also be A tier. UCLA, Auburn, Alabama, TCU, UCF, the wins have not really aged that beautifully. Do you kind of agree with that argument there?
I mean, I hear him out. I hear what he's saying. I also don't think Arizona has had the slip-ups against, the teams that are lower caliber than them like Iowa State has. And Iowa State I know they've played Kansas and Houston the last 2 games, and, that's incredible in and of itself, but they still got to play BYU, Texas Tech, and Arizona. And so I don't think they've really hit the meat of their schedule yet. They're just getting into it. I'm really interested to see how they play out in this final 5 games of the season, because I think that the road games in particular are going to be extremely enticing and revealing as to who they are as a team, right? Because that Hilton aspect of how good they play it's entirely a factor, and what they do on the road, I think, is important for me in determining what makes an A tier or an S tier team.
Next up, the worst team in the Big 12. The team without a coach as of right now. The first team in the Big 12 without a coach. We're moving them all the way to the Tangless are the K-State Wildcats, who are now an even bigger failure, as I've slightly enlarged their logo at the very end of the D tier. You are now the biggest failure, as you have fired your coach before anybody else even had to think about it this year. I guess ASU's probably been thinking about it this year. But yeah,
I love
Jerome Tang fired. Fired, he's gone.
I'm going to miss him so much. That guy was electric. Say what you want about Jerome Tang. That guy was electric. From the viral memes, the viral videos, to the press conferences after every single, massive loss that they sustained over the last 2 seasons. Like, he's just electric. And we're going to miss him in college basketball. We need him back. We need him in Tempe, Arizona.
We do. Tang hired lawyers as well, as 3DMK put in the chat. That's going to be an interesting little battle. I don't know if you saw the opening statement. Oh, you and I talked about it yesterday. The opening statement from Tang's lawyers saying that if they think this statement from Tang is embarrassing, they got nothing on what we have coming for them. So that's going to be, as 3DMK says, a messy, expensive.
Karchenkov. I can't wait. Fire me up. That's the type of stuff I live for, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, they're gonna have Jerome Tang at the podium in the courtroom, whatever it is, the witness stand or whatever, and he's gonna be like, Mr. Tang, do you think that you deserve to be fired for cause? First of all, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. No, I didn't think so. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Thank you. Moving on, we got Houston, and I still think, despite the loss on the road in a crazy, crazy, raucous environment, I still think Houston is in the S tier. And one step further, I still think they're above Iowa State in the S tier. I'm sorry, Cyclone fans. Is that crazy?
I think they're above Arizona in the S tier now, Kevin.
I mean, I can hear it.
We're playing catch-up with them.
I can hear it.
And obviously, Arizona can get the job done against BYU and be tied for first place in the Big 12 again. But we're chasing Houston right now, and we needed Houston to lose in order for that to be possible. And they lost in a game that I think Arizona probably would have lost in as well, based off of what we've seen the last 2 outings out of the Wildcats. So I think Houston's the class of the conference. I think Houston is my pick for a national title winner right now if I had to make a bracket.
That's valid, and I do think that
they're ridiculous, man.
Our argument for Arizona
so sick of Houston. They're so good. Even when they lose, you walk away and you're like, how is Houston so good?
No, genuinely. I mean, I said it last night on Twitter. It was one of my reactions to the game. They had this dude Sacco come into the game who, quite frankly, sorry if I don't know ball, I had not heard very much about this Sacco character. He comes in with a ton of energy, comes in dunking the ball, blocking the ball. I'm like, dude, every time I watch Houston, and I watch Houston a lot, they got a new guy who's playing perfect basketball with the highest motor I've ever seen in my life.
For sure.
So, yeah, I think our argument for Arizona being in top of the S tier for so long was that they were playing the best basketball of any team in the Big 12 and maybe the best basketball of any team in the country. I think Houston, their overall level of play this season is the best in the conference right now. Houston, atop the tier rankings at the S tier, tier 1. Next up, though, Damon, Oklahoma State is next on our tier list. Now, Oklahoma State is a bit of an interesting one. As we've already noted, 3 straight losses, like some other teams on this list. Oklahoma State loses to Arizona, loses to Arizona State, and then loses to TCU, and they got Kansas up next.
It's the worst run I've ever heard in my life.
That could be 4 straight losses for Oklahoma State, Damon. Is this a D-tier team right now?
I mean, that's what a D-tier team sounds like, right? But I wouldn't be opposed to having them on the end of C tier, but they're either at the top of D tier or at the end of C tier.
I think if we're going to be consistent, at least what I believe to be consistent with our logic for the rest of this episode so far, if you're losing a bunch of games in a row to teams that maybe you shouldn't, like an Arizona State, like a TCU, I think that deserves them to drop, and I think that deserves them to be in the top of the top of the D tier. Damon, I think we're going to have Oklahoma State, Baylor, Arizona State, Utah, Kansas State in that D tier, at least so far, right? At least so far.
Next up, we got an interesting team in Kansas, Kevin, who I guess we've had them in the S tier the last couple of weeks. Did they stay there?
You lose to Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get drubbed. Yeah. You kind of get drubbed by 20. I still feel like this is an S tier team, though. The performance they put on against Arizona, the level of talent they have on that roster, I think you can put them in the S tier yet still. But I think they should be behind Iowa State. Shout out to Iowa State. I will say that I think KU should be behind you, even though I think, I think maybe neutral site. Iowa State might be the one to pick in that one, even though the other team might have Darren Peterson. Give me Kansas at the bottom of the S tier, Damon. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with it. I like it. Kansas is extremely good. Are they better than Texas Tech, though, I guess is the question that needs to be asked there, because Texas Tech obviously is our lone A-tier team right now, but and I saw a comment earlier in the chat, and it's so true. It's like, yeah, there's probably 5 S-tier teams truly in this conference, but we're grading on a scale of Big 12 teams here, and that, I think, unfortunately drops Texas Tech a slight amount just because they have full body work-wise not really handled business against some of the teams that they probably should have on their schedule, and they got to get docked for that. But they also have the upper echelon wins that of any team in the country to hang their hat on, that make it where I get it. I would want them to be an S-tier team too if I was a Texas Tech fan. I think Kansas and Texas Tech are extremely close, though, if I'm being completely honest. Last but not least.
Well, last but almost least, we have Colorado, Damon. Colorado has not had a very easy run so far this season. Tad, what's that on my face? It's a Boyle. He has struggled with this squad this year. He is coming out after games in the pressers talking about how their team is getting their ass whooped. That was a good old-fashioned ass whooping, as he said, when they got beaten by Texas Tech, 78-44. Yikes. This is in the D tier.
I'm with it. Colorado, not a good team. Tad Boyle basically did the same spiel that Jerome Tang did, but he didn't get fired for it because he's been at the university for a million bajillion years, and also standards are a lot lower at Colorado, I guess, than they are at K-State. But that's what we got. We got the full rankings here. S tier, 4 teams here in the S tier. We got Houston, Arizona, Iowa State, and Kansas. Texas Tech holding down the A tier by themselves. B tier YU continues to be our lone B tier team. C tier West Virginia at the top. UCF drops down. TCU bumps back up. And Cincinnati gets a little bit more respect from the boys here on this panel. And then D tier, you got Oklahoma State falling, Baylor sticking at the top of the D tier like they have the entire season, Colorado, ASU, Utah, and then, of course, the tangless Wildcats of K-State rounding us out there. That is our Big 12 tier rankings for the week. We will update them next week, and hopefully, Kevin, we will be talking about 2 Arizona Wildcats W's that catapult Arizona back up to that number 1 spot in the Big 12. But in the meantime, of course, we have an Arizona game versus BYU tomorrow, where we're going to be giving you pregame and postgame coverage, as we always do on this channel, 30 minutes prior to opening tip. Kevin and I will be going live. And then, of course, postgame will be about 10 minutes after that final buzzer sounds. So be on the lookout for that. Stay locked in on all of our social channels for all of the great stuff that we have coming out daily here, whether it's, for this podcast or on our personal social channels as well. My guy, Kevin Thomas, is just straight cooking with a walk in the back, just letting it fly, man.
It's the still image of the dude with the literal tidal wave of rice.
Absolutely. That's what Kevo Posts is up to these days. And if you're not following my guy Kevin, you got to. Kevo Post, KEVOPOSTS. He's absolutely cooking on Twitter. And then, of course, I had a generational banger for myself last night about Jerome Tang and ASU, which you guys need to go check out at Damon Dog, DAWG on the end of that guy. And follow us at PHNX_Wildcats on all social, except for TikTok, where we're at AZ Wildcats Pod.
Real quick, before we get on out of here, Damon, I wanted to give you at least a couple minutes or however long you want to discuss this tweet from one Jedfish, who put this out the other day. Josh Pate's current top 12 programs in the country: Ohio State, Georgia, Indiana, Oregon, Texas, no Washington, anywhere on the list. And Jedfish's reaction was, what? Got it. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here, Jedfish. What are you doing? Writing that down for motivation.
The guy no one invited to the party.
Dude, shout out to Tyler Warden. Again, Tyler Warden, shout out on this podcast, but he's doing banger hunting as well, because he said this list is even funnier when you look at it and think of Jedfish seeing this list saying, got it, this is my new LinkedIn job request list of the top 12 jobs I want, right? He's like, oh, this is the new hotspot. These are the people that people want to hire and whatever. These are the best jobs. All right, these are the jobs I'm now hunting for.
I just, what else is there really to say? What is Jedfish talking about?
What is he at?
What world is he living in?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not the one the rest of us are. You don't get it, though. Costco and Microsoft and Boeing and REI, they're in the backyard. Kevin, Montlake. That's all you need to hear. Montlake. It's a top 12 job. It's so funny. School. So funny that Jedfish felt the need to respond. Almost feels fake. Almost felt like a fake account that was quote tweeting it, because who pays attention to things like that when they're a head coach of a football team? And I think it just had the opposite effect of what Jed thought it was going to have. Jed thought he was cooking on Twitter. Jed was banger hunting. Kevin, Jed was sitting there going, oh, the people are going to love this. And instead it got 10 times the traction because people from opposing fan bases were like, what the hell is Blood talking about? And no one knows. No one knows. The Jedfish experience. Electric.
Yeah. 3DMK says he's got no walk, though. He was trying to cook with no walk.
Cooking with no walk. It's not going to work out well for you. I mean, Kevin, let's face it. You got a quarterback who is begging to leave, and you are threatening litigation against him to get him to stay, and then you want to tell people you're a top 12 program. Yeah? That's what top 12 programs do. They get their lawyers involved to say, you're not going anywhere, buddy. Even though you don't want to play for us, you're not going anywhere. Damon Williams had $3 million coming his way or whatever, $4 million, and was like, get me the hell out of Seattle as fast as possible.
I'm with it.
That's not a top 12 program, man. It's not. I'm sorry, Jed. I'm sorry.
It's genuinely not. It's genuinely not. And my laptop has died. I think that means the end of the show, Damon. I think that means the end of the show. It's been an incredible one. It was packed. Thank you to everyone that watched this show today, our shows all the time. Tune in tomorrow, pregame, postgame. Also, if you missed our tier rankings, we'll drop that tomorrow as well for you. So no worries on that side, Damon. But yeah, let's get out of here. I got to charge my laptop.
Let's do it. Of course, as I already said, follow him at Kevo Post. Follow me at Damon Dog. Follow us at PHNX_Wildcats on all social media. And we cannot wait for tomorrow's game against BYU. Absolute Karchenkov. Be here on the PHNX Sports channel and witness it with us. Pre-game, post-game coverage. Can't wait for it. Until then, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats. I'm so sorry, Jerome Tang. I'm so sorry. You build those orphanages, though.
We all silly like the mayor.